Hi there, this is Solitary Ronin and welcome to another random review. Today's random review is a documentary, and for me it might actually be the best film of the millennium. I know that's a strong statement, but if you've seen it, you might not agree, but you'll certainly agree that it's a film you're not going to forget in a hurry. And it's The Act of Killing by Joshua Oppenheimer. And this is a film that is mind-blowing. It's one of those films that is hard to describe. But I'm going to give it a go. It's about an event that I didn't really know much about, and I'm sure quite a lot of people who saw the film when it came out maybe didn't know much about. It's about Indonesia in 1965, where the government pretty much paid gangsters to kill communists. About between 1 million and 2 million people were killed in and around a 1-2 year period. It was pretty much just anybody who the government didn't like, but it was under the guise of communism. The West cheered. There is nice footage in the film of newspaper headlines in the States, and they were pretty much celebrating 1 million communists killed. There is shots of documents in the film that pretty much the CIA were giving the Indonesian government information about who to kill. And it is just, it's mind-blowing. I mean, obviously if you are that way politically inclined, that you pretty much know that the CIA in the West has a history of pretty much starting genocide or helping genocide, or putting dictators in and out of power depending whether they like them or not. But this film, it's incredible because it tells a story of that genocide, again of communists, but it was essentially teachers, poets, writers, anybody that the government didn't like. They would just point them out, and it did use the unusual tool of essentially gangsters to do the killings for them. So that's a bit of the background. The actual film, which I'm shaking my head just thinking about it, because it literally is one of those films, one scene never forgotten. This edition by Dogwoof has the theatrical cut, which is about 2 hours, and the director's cut, which is about 2.5 hours. If you buy the film, and I would recommend you buying the film if you haven't seen it, I would recommend watching the director's cut. It just gives a bit more depth and to the unbelievableness of the concept. When you consider that Werner Herzog and Errol Morris, two giants of documentary cinema, were blown away by it and helped kind of market it not market it, but help getting it shown. Anyway, I've rambled enough about the kind of setup of it. The actual execution, if you pardon the pun, of the documentary is amazing. Josh Oppenheimer spent a couple of years in Indonesia gaining the trust of 3 of the people who did the killing. So there's kind of 3 main characters, even though the film kind of eventually gravitates towards one character called Anwar. But it's 3 guys that did the killing. Now you have to remember, these guys in the country are actually viewed as heroes. So there's shots of Anwar going on a talk show and having no shame about telling the details of killing people. We figured he might have killed up to 200 people. And again, they're celebrated as heroes. So the concept basically is these 3 guys, and Joshua Oppenheimer gets them to reenact the killings. I'll just say that again. He gets them to reenact the killings, to talk about the killings, and to act out the killings, as the title suggests. So in the 60s, the Indonesians were exposed to Hollywood films, gangster films, musicals, westerns, Elvis movies. So they talk about, they would go to the cinema and see like an American gangster film or an Elvis picture, and then go across the road and garrote some people to death. They are really blasé about it, and that's what Oppenheimer does. Now when you actually see this unfold for the first time, you're like, what is going on? This is morally dubious, to say the least. He's getting people who killed people to reenact the killings in the style of gangster films, westerns, or musicals, as you see in the front cover. They get like extras and they dress them up. They recreate the burning of a village. So you're kind of repulsed by these guys. You're questioning what you're actually watching. It's not a snuff film, but it's kind of reenacting killings, and these guys are quite happy to play in front of the camera and play to the camera. Obviously, it took Oppenheimer a couple of years to actually gain their trust. So kind of halfway through it, you're kind of going, what am I watching? This is quite bizarre. But then something happens. So you've got the 3 guys. One of them you feel is just kind of a hanger-on, who may have done some killing, but he's almost like a super fan of the other 2. You have the one that is completely unrepentant, who talks about, if you want to prosecute me or you want to, get me into trouble for what I did, take me to the European Union, in Brussels, and I'll, other countries get to kill people without retaliation or consequence. So, what's the problem? So he's, straight down the line, what we're doing was good, and there's no problem with it, and we shouldn't be punished or judged for it. But Anwar, the main character, starts kind of questioning maybe his actions. I mean, there's a character who was involved, but when the cameras are on him, he claims he didn't know what was going on. And of course, the other characters are just like, "What are you talking about? You knew exactly what was going on." You will be kind of shocked by the candor, because there's people who like brag about, "Oh yeah, I just pointed him out, and then he like disappeared," and are quite chuffed with themselves. Again, it's just a stunning film. You will probably spend most of the time with your jaw dropped. Certainly I did. But as the film goes on, and I'm not going to say what it is, but something happens with Anwar, and the whole film just changes. And it's a moment, it's one of the greatest moments in cinema. I was actually in tears when it happened, when I saw it for the first time. This guy that did a lot of terrible things, you actually feel for him, which is, there's just like so many kind of thoughts going through your head. There's like, why am I thinking this, and should I be thinking this? There's no way that this review by just a talking head like me can do this film justice. It's just absolutely amazing. If this film doesn't affect you in some way, you're maybe not human, or you're a psychopath, one of the two. Again, I don't want to give too many details, because that would spoil it. But it's just a monumental work. The people involved in making it, the Indonesian crew, if you watch the credits, there's lots of anonymous for fear of retaliation, because the same government is in power. The same gangsters essentially are in power. This was made in 2012, and then 2015 Oppenheimer released a second film, The Look of Silence, which is another amazing work. It's not quite as jaw-droppingly extraordinary as The Act of Killing. And again, they actually made that film first, but could only release it once they'd released The Act of Killing. And again, most of the crew are anonymous. The Look of Silence, just as a side note, is about a child of one of the many million, or one of the many, up to 1 million or over 1 million people who were murdered. And he, under the auspices of doing eye tests for these people, he kind of needles away at them and asks them about their part in the massacres. And he actually lets them know that his father was among the people that were murdered. Again, that's another powerful film, and I recommend watching that as well. But don't watch it in a double bill. It's a bit much. Speaking of double bills, you can buy them on a joint Blu-ray, certainly on Amazon in the UK for $6.99. It's a no-brainer, and you really should buy it. Again, it's far from an easy watch. And again, you will think, what am I watching and why am I watching it? This is distasteful. This is morally dubious, to say the least, to show these guys in fancy dress recreating the murders that they did. But again, there is a moment that could only happen in cinema, and it's one of the greatest moments in cinema history. And of course the film ends in a huge musical number. And sadly the song that they use, you will never listen to in the same light again. It's a fairly famous song, but every time you hear it now, you won't think of what it was famous for. You'll think of the act of killing. So please watch it if you haven't watched it. Out of all my random reviews, this might be the best film. Like I said, for me, it's arguably the best film of the 2000s. The bizarre thing is, as you can see, it's Certificate E, which is quite bizarre because it's not an easy watch. I mean, I guess they made it E so everybody would see it because it's an important film. And again, it does raise the question, well, it's an important film, it makes you think, it shows you something that happened in our history that is, well, depending on what viewpoint you look at, it's certainly nothing to be proud of. Obviously certain people in America would probably have no problem with it. But what does it change? Again, it's the same government that's in Indonesia. It's the same gangs that run the place. During the filming, the characters are like threatened. In The Look of Silence, there's a particularly chilling scene with one of the high ups pretty much saying, we can make you disappear. So yes, it's a great film. Yes, it's an important film. But what does it change? It informs people. Again, it exposes something in a unique way. I've never seen anything like it. But what does it actually change? I mean, it certainly changes the viewer, but on the broader scale, it's an important question about the power of art. Does it change things? And on that bombshell, I'll leave you. I apologise because I haven't really did this film justice. If you've got £7 lying about, please buy the double bill. Don't watch as a double bill though. And please leave comments below if you've seen it before. Please like the video. And thank you very much for watching. This is Saltyrone saying goodbye.